Hello, everyone, and welcome to Emerging Threats, Evolving Strategies, Navigating the Changing Landscape of Data Security. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and Zscaler and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator for this special event. But before we get to today's content, there's a couple of housekeeping items I need to let you know about that'll help you get the most out of this session. First up, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. Now, that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be having. So if you can't see something, you can't hear something, first thing you want to do is give that browser a refresh. That'll fix most problems. If that doesn't work, try another refresh. If that still doesn't work, let us know in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Okay, next up in the handout section of that webinar control panel, it's right next to the questions tab. You'll find a number of fantastic resources that I encourage you to download right now. And those include 3 handouts from Rubrik, some really valuable stuff there. So look those over and download those before the end of the event today. They are all free. Now, other links you will find there in that handout section are links to the Gorilla Guide Book Club, where you can get access to our great printed resources on technology topics. There's also a link to the Actual Tech Media Event Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. Some really cool ones coming up here. So take a look and see what we've got and sign up today if you see something you like. All right. Up next, at the end of this webinar, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Now, you do have to be in attendance during the entire live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of the prize drawing can be found in the handout section. And with that, everyone, let's get to the main event for today. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters. We have got Zoltan Deek, the Director of Product Marketing for Rubrik, and he will be joined by Salah Nasser, the Senior Director of Product Marketing for Zscaler. Looks like they're ready to go. So Zoltan, I'm going to hand over things to you. You have the floor now.
Jump right in here. And before we do, Salah, how are you today? Thanks for joining.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well too. Looking
Excited about today's topic. It's a fun topic.
Yeah, exactly. So for our folks at home, right, this webinar will be discussing some of the emerging threats we see impacting the landscape of data security, really informed by some research, really cool research from Rubrik ThreatLabz and Zscaler ThreatLabz. So we'll take a look at that and what the research tells us about how adversaries are going after your data. And we'll cover some best practices when it comes to protecting and securing that data. And at the end, we'll cover double extortion ransomware and how the integration between Rubrik and Zscaler helps combat that. So, all right, let's jump right in. Just to start off with why we're here, right? Every company out there at its heart is a data company. I don't care what industry you're in, especially in today's world, you need data to drive your business. And on top of that, the data needs to be shareable in order to have value. More than ever, we need to collaborate across geographies, with partners, vendors, and third-party agencies to really make business go. And that data is irreplaceable. You can replace hardware, you can replace data centers, either with another one or by moving it to the cloud. You can even somewhat replace people, but you can't replace data. If it's gone for good. So your data is uniquely important to you and it's irreplaceable. It's ultimately the #1 priority of the adversary for that reason. Right. So ransomware attacks in particular, but almost all attacks are against your data. You cannot replace it. So in our last Rubrik ThreatLabz report, we gained insights from over 5,000 customers across, I believe it was around 57 countries. And no surprise, they told us their data is growing incredibly fast. Data within organizations that is stored and protected is growing at about 25% a year, and it's everywhere. It's growing the fastest in the cloud and in SaaS applications, but still also growing on premises. I know just about every customer I talk to these days has a hybrid environment with workloads in multiple clouds, and of course, taking advantage of SaaS applications. But attackers know all this, and they're setting their sights where your data is. We can see that in 2022, attackers were using each of these channels to go after individual organizations with their efforts more concentrated on the cloud. Salat, what are you seeing at Zscaler?
Yeah, just to double down on what you guys are seeing, clearly we see the same thing, right? Most of our customers, if you think about the world that they're living in today, they're all migrating to the cloud, right? There's not a single customer out there. There's not a single company out there, regardless of what type of market they're in, everywhere from finance to healthcare to retail, manufacturing, et cetera, that is not adopting public cloud, right? And we see this, even on this call, right? We're using Zoom. We all use cloud-based email. We all use cloud-based application messaging to communicate. We use applications such as Salesforce, Slack, et cetera, to create, share documents, information, et cetera. So to your point, that data, and I wasn't surprised to see 500% growth or so in SaaS applications. Now, another point that you made that's very interesting is that data truly does equal money, and bad actors are not going after organizations just for the thrill of going after organizations from a threat perspective, right? They're putting in a lot of resources, people as well as money resources, to target organizations so they can extort money. And the number one thing that we're seeing specifically in ransomware is that double extortion is really what's on the rise, right? If we back up a few years, ransomware was skyrocketing because organizations wanted to get the equipment back, access to the equipment back that had that sensitive data. And many of them opted in to just say, I have insurance, I have other resources to be able to access my data. I'm not going to pay the ransomware extortion. And therefore, the increase in double extortion, almost 40% year over year, absolutely dramatic. And again, that just brings focus back to, look, you need security everywhere, you need platform everywhere, but data at the end of the day is the target of bad actors.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting, right? When we're talking about ransomware, it's not just about the ransom, as you mentioned, right? A whopping 72% of the organizations we spoke to that were hit by a successful ransomware attempt ended up paying that ransom. And they paid pretty evenly to both prevent data leaks as well as to unlock encrypted data. So when you talk double extortion, right, they're asking for a ransom to unlock your data, but we're seeing a pretty equal amount of customers or organizations out there that are paying once they get extorted because the adversary has stolen that data. And I think one of the key takeaways for me here is only 16% of the companies that paid a ransom were able to recover all of their data. So you're paying that ransom, but it's a shockingly low number that shows that bad guys are very effective at locking up and stealing your data, but not so good at making sure you get it all back, even when you pay up.
Yep, that's right. And the reality, it's still a breach, right? You still lost your data. Whether you got access back to it doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the world doesn't also have access to that data.
Absolutely. And I personally was also very surprised at the economic impact beyond the hit to your loss of data and business that may result from a ransomware attack, right? So, what shocked me was the amount of the regulatory impact. We know organizations have lots of sensitive data and can incur tremendous fines and penalties if that data is not secured. And if you think about it, one spreadsheet file alone can contain hundreds of sensitive data records. And if you do the math, a typical organization contains enough sensitive data to max out any and all financial penalties resulting from regulations. So huge stipulations there.
Absolutely. I've talked to so many customers, CIOs, CISOs on this topic. One of the biggest roadblocks organizations have in cloud adoption in general and cloud security is, hey, as I allow my employees, regardless of where they are, regardless of where they're working, to connect directly to cloud, can I maintain can I maintain government regulations? Can I maintain compliance, et cetera? And you combine that with this fact that, look, penalties are huge. The ability for me to secure sensitive data is becoming not necessarily more difficult, but more of a focus for organizations as they go to the cloud. And I think this is a fantastic segue, Zoltan, to jump into some of the use cases that organizations should think about as they migrate to the cloud and as they look at securing their data.
Absolutely. So I think we all understand, right? Data is growing rapidly. It's the crown jewel in your organization that bad guys are trying to steal. They're using many different techniques to get at it, and ransomware is a significant and often successful tool. So they're going after your data wherever it lives, as Salah just spoke to, cloud, SaaS, on-prem. If they get it and expose it, it's going to be costly to the business. So what are some best practices to secure your data, right? I think a good place to start is to answer some basic questions, right? So we want to reduce sensitive data exposure because it's truly the sensitive data that's more valuable to an attacker and what they're going after. In order to reduce that exposure, we know we've got to start by understanding a few key things about your data landscape. What's your sensitive data and where's it located? On top of that, who's accessing it and what are they doing with it? And how has that sensitive data changed over time? So you need visibility and context into those things. If you don't have that visibility, it's going to be really hard to protect. Salah, what do you have for us?
No, you're hitting it on the nose. Look, at the end of the day, you need to be able to understand what you are securing. And as an organization thinking about this tactically as a CISO, where do I begin? Well, you begin with understanding where your sensitive data resides. And then you start moving into, hey, as I understand what sensitive data I have as an organization, I start to look at where does that data reside, and I control access to the data. I secure the applications my data lives on, right? And then I slowly expand and secure the data and the entire platform, my SaaS platform. And this is a really interesting area. And if you don't mind, I'll go through some of these different use cases that are really just foundational to securing your organization, right? I mean, it all starts with your endpoint, your data that is in motion. It's being created, it's being moved around, whether that device is a corporate device or that device is a BYO device. And that BYO device could be employees, it could be partners, it could be contractors, et cetera. But look, at the end of the day, Zoltan, you said it best. Data is being created to be shared, and it is everywhere. So you have to have a flexible platform that can work with any type of a device. And of course, it all has to do with identity access as well, right? One aspect that is almost always missed, and it's such a it's an interesting conversation to have with security professionals looking at deploying security platforms, is, hey, have you thought about the integrations applications have with each other, and what level of privilege these applications have, and how do you begin to secure access to these different applications as their threat level rises? So as an example of this, Zoltan, I personally have Slack. I love Slack. I use Slack every day. I try not to jump between different messaging applications. But so what I do is I end up doing tons of integrations so I can get my work done on Slack. So I integrate Slack with a few different applications, some work applications such as my Google Calendar, Asana, things to that effect, and some personal applications just so I can manage my personal life as well. And this actually has created a backhole for many organizations that have employees such as myself who are look, SaaS platforms these days are made for these type of integrations, right? They're made to cross-pollinate between each other and to increase our productivity. But this creates a big blind spot to organizations to understand, hey, you not only have to worry these days about ensuring Salah is using a device, is secure, he is who he says he is using a device that's secure, that's not packed with malware as I connect to these SaaS platforms that have sensitive data, right? So you have all this posture control set aside for Salah, the application, the device. Well, what about the third-party applications that have integrations into your organization? So, you know, where I will leave this conversation, Zoltan, is you have to start looking at your new environment from a platform perspective. And you can easily fall into kind of chasing the use case and looking at, hey, this is the next vendor I need to solve this patch in my organization, versus looking at, hey, I have a SaaS platform, right? And I need to secure the entire platform from device to the cloud, and regardless where the data is moving. So that is a big aspect to data protection, is ensuring that you have visibility, protection, and control across your entire SaaS platform. And that typically means that you have a platform approach to your cloud security as well.
Makes perfect sense. And I'll just build off something you mentioned, which is the word identity, right? So I think when it comes to the cloud in particular, identity is more and more taking center stage, right? You spoke about things like protecting against misconfiguration of apps, and also oversharing or over-authorization of access to sensitive data, right? So I just want to emphasize how important this is. So let's think of the example of a single user who has access to a few documents that maybe they shouldn't or don't need access to. And those documents may contain multiple sensitive records. If that user's credentials are compromised, those records are exposed and vulnerable. Right. But it's fairly contained, right? It's one person. It's also probably rather difficult for an adversary to find this user and compromise their credentials. Now imagine hundreds of or thousands of employees across a large organization having over-authorized or over-privileged access to sensitive data. Right now, all of a sudden, it's really easy for an adversary to find and compromise a user, and there's way more access to sensitive data across all those users. This equates to much increased risk, right? So another best practice we often talk about is really controlling access to users and applications. So if a user does not, need access to a particular set of data, being able to control that access. So the more you can understand and control a user's access to sensitive data, the more you can reduce and manage risk.
100%. I absolutely. And that is truly foundational for you as an organization looking to deploy a zero trust model, right? The ability to control or to have these controls in for the user, the applications, and the data is absolutely, for those of you who are already in that zero trust model or on your way to that zero trust model, that is foundational. You know, the other aspect of this is taking advantage of some advanced technology out there these days. Look, one area that organizations need to look at is not only what is my sensitive data, but how is my sensitive data being utilized? How is it being accessed? How is it being shared? So the ability to understand who your users are, what applications they're touching, what sensitive data is being utilized and moved around. Is it moving to trusted applications? Is it moving to untrusted applications, right? Are there risky applications accessing my data? And look, this is where the power of platforms come in to have that centralized view with a heavy AI ML backend with deep business intelligence user behavior that is looking at this is one aspect of it. And that really helps you not have to become a data security expert as an organization to get this done, right? Heavily rely on AI ML to do that for you, to do that automated classification, to give you that visibility of where your users are connecting from, what they're connecting to, where that data is moving around. That is one area, right? Look at your data as it is being utilized, being created in motion. Being able to secure it in motion. And again, this is from device to SaaS application, between SaaS application, having those tenant restrictions, having access specific controls. And also, it's also more and more, our connections to SaaS applications happen through web browsers, and more of these communications are encrypted, right? So gone are the days where I could say, hey, I'm connecting direct to cloud without going through an encrypted tunnel. But as an organization that is worried about their, imagine a hospital and their employees are distributed and people are accessing and sharing health information, right? Or they're sharing PCI information, or they're sharing intellectual property, right? Many of you on this call right now are probably shaking their heads vigorously like, yeah, we have intellectual property that goes to the cloud. Being able to see that regardless of what private tunnel it's going through. And then at the end of the day, and I think this is, securing data at rest is such an interesting conversation. And this is, if I foreshadow our solution here, the ability to ensure that it is, it's the secure, that data is there, that it's secure, whether it's residing in SaaS applications, different types of SaaS applications, if it's in your data center, your infrastructure as a service, regardless of where it is. This is where you need to have that assurance that those applications are configured properly, that you don't have overexposure or access from applications that are overly privileged to your SaaS platform or to your platform in general.
Absolutely. Okay. I'll also I'll chime in. I think one more here as far as best practices to think about when looking at data security. So this one definitely comes from a Rubrik standpoint. We highly encourage all of our customers to use threat monitoring capabilities specifically within your backup data, right? So we know that organizations out there have invested a ton in detection and prevention security controls, and that continues to be essential. However, we also know that attacks continue to get through, and threats in general don't tend to strike right away once they get through your defenses. there is some amount of dwell time as the bad guys look to move laterally or conduct additional recon. So in fact, ransomware dwell times average about 9 days. So think about it, that's 9 days where malicious files are sitting in your network, just waiting to detonate and compromise your data. 9 days where you have an opportunity to detect it and stop it or minimize blast radius. Monitoring for threats in your backup data gives you the opportunity to scan your entire data landscape without agents hitting your production environment. It also gives you an opportunity to track your data over time to understand if there are changes happening within it that shouldn't be. So if you're going to scan for threats in your backup data, a couple things to keep in mind. Your threat monitoring should leverage high quality threat intel and threat feeds that is automatically updated because we know IT has more than enough to do without having to manage those manual updates. And finally, sorry, working through the build there. When it comes to securing your data, again, it's not just about preventing bad guys from gaining access. It's also about ensuring your ability to recover quickly and safely when you do get hit. So having a strong cyber recovery plan and a plan that you actually practice and rehearse is key. So this is a whole webinar on its own, so I won't get into details here, but I can tell you our data shows that only about 56% of organizations out there have formal incident response plans in place, and even less regularly test them. Your data grows daily. All the places that data is stored, all the users who have access to it changes daily, and your technology infrastructure changes pretty rapidly too, right? So having the discipline to regularly plan, test, and practice recovery is crucial for when you get hit and your ability to recover quickly and ensure that business continuity. So, Salah, we've talked about some of the threat landscape and gone over some best practices to secure data. Organizations are racing to get visibility into and protection of their data across hybrid environments. And you talked about double extortion ransomware earlier. Maybe start off, remind us what that is.
So double extortion is where bad actors are going to first gain access to your organization, and then they're going to encrypt your devices, and now they're encrypting your data as well, and they will not provide that decryption until they get their ransom, right? So as organization, as you mentioned earlier, Zoltan, through the Rubrik intelligence, is that, what was it, about 50-50 of organizations are paying to either decrypt their devices and or decrypt their data, right? And look, you know, we touched on this, and again, there's so many hot topics here in today's conversation. We can spend a whole day, you know, on the topic of what steps do I take as an organization to secure my data to ensure it doesn't get exfiltrated, or you know, I don't lose it in any form, malicious or accidental breach. However, at the end of the day, you also need that insurance, and that insurance is also the ability to recover that data without worrying about the bad actors, or you paying the bad actors to get that data back.
Right. And so with that in mind, right, your company and mine, Rubrik and Zscaler, have worked together to integrate our solutions to maximize protection for our customers. And that integration really does three core things, right? So we ID sensitive data, we identify what types of sensitive data you have, where it lives, and who has access to it, all out of band from production systems.
That's right.
We then, inspect traffic for violations, right? We find completely or partially matching documents when inspecting outbound traffic with data protection policies, right? So, and I guess we should break it down a little, right? So Rubrik does a lot of sensitive data monitoring, passes that information over to Zscaler, where you identify or you fingerprint that information in your index to more easily and accurately prevent data loss, because you can apply policies against that fingerprinted data now.
That's right. And if I could take it from there, right? So as Rubrik does its magic on the back end in their backups and the secure data that they see, they pass that on. That enriches all the data that Zscaler sees as well, right? And now it adds that into our platform, and Zscaler secures your data. We secure your users accessing these different applications. We ensure that the form that they utilize to access these different applications, again, whether they're IaaS, SaaS, cloud, whatever it may, private cloud, public cloud, we ensure that threats are blocked, such as ransomware threats, malware coming into your organization. And now working with Rubrik, we can add that extra layer of protection of your data in motion as well as your data at rest.
And, I think one of the coolest things about this integration, Salah, is you simply turn it on, right? So if you're a customer of Zscaler's DLP solution, if you're a customer of Rubrik on Enterprise Edition, you just turn it on. There's no need for additional integration work or additional deployment. Again, you simply sort of set up your settings and you're good to go.
That's right, and I think that's incredibly important to talk about, because that's how platforms should work, folks, right? You should be able to simply bring in two organizations that both do something for you, and then have a 1 + 1 = 3. And that's exactly what's happening here. So we're showing you all these different steps, and we talked about, hey, Rubrik fingerprints specific data. They add it to, they communicate it to Zscaler. Zscaler looks at these fingerprints. We search, we apply policy to where that data, we see that data in your SaaS environment. That just happens automatically. You don't have to take the extra steps to create the policies, to find that data, to understand what kind of sensitive data that is. Is it PCI data? Is it HIPAA data? Is it intellectual, right? That's what we're doing on the back end. And we're just applying that security for you. And matter of fact, I think, it would behoove us to let our customers know that are on these calls that they should take a minute and find our demos and look at how cool and easy that is to get done.
Absolutely. All right. And Salah, I think you had some additional resources you wanted to point folks.
Yeah, look, there's so much. Again, the demos that we have specifically with these integrations. But one area, look, I know a lot of organizations that we've talked to are struggling with their existing data protection solutions, because if we look at the legacy approaches of data protection, you truly have to be an expert within data protection and an expert within PCI and HIPAA and GDPR, and spend a ridiculous amount of time fine-tuning policies so you can just have visibility of what is going on in your environment from a sensitive data perspective. Where is my data? Who's accessing it? Where is it moving? And Zscaler has solved that. We've solved that with AI/ML. We've solved that with really easy to turn on data protection solutions. And then we let our customers speak for us. We hired IDC, and they went out and they interviewed a lot of our customers and came out with this study that shows for our existing customers who have turned on data protection, left legacy data protection solutions, and switched to Zscaler data protection, what kind of savings that they've had in their organization. So I'd highly recommend. This is a fantastic read for you, just to kind of get a quick view of the value of using a platform approach for your data protection solution.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I will also give one shout out here before we start to wrap, and that is to our Rubrik Zero Labs. So folks, you heard me talking, using numbers and figures from our amazing Rubrik Zero Labs. They do fantastic analysis. They talk to just a ton of organizations to get at data that is going to inform us, as well as all of you out there, how to better protect your organizations. So if you'd like to dive into their latest report, please go ahead and locate it at the barcode on this slide here. That's available to you on our website. And with that, thank you so much all for joining us today. We hope you found this valuable. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Salah, thank you for joining up with me and running through this webinar.
Thank you, Zoltan. Thank you for having Zscaler and myself on this call. That was very informative.
All right, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for that excellent overview. So much good information there, so much knowledge, so much illumination. I think we would all agree. I learned a lot, and I think everyone else did too. Just great stuff. Now, for any questions that you might be asking, know this, that the companies will get back to you and answer any questions that you might have on that. So have no fear. And we are now, folks, getting close to the end of our event. There's one more piece of business to take care of, and that is the Amazon gift card prize drawing for $250. As I mentioned at the beginning, for this and any of our events, you do have to be in attendance for the entire thing to be eligible for the prize. And we do have a winner for today, and that winner of the $250 gift card is Paul DiFilippo from Massachusetts. Congratulations to you, Paul. We'll be in touch with you ASAP to get you your card, so sit tight. And with that, everyone, we're wrapped. On behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik and Zscaler for making this event possible. For you, the attendees, thank you for being here. You're the reason we do this. Thanks for your engagement, for your great questions today. I sure enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Well, we're done, folks. You get a few minutes back in your day. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next event.